You know that sound. We've all heard it. Maybe it's coming from down the hall, maybe it's right beside you in bed. Snoring. And yeah, we usually just write it off as an annoyance, right? A funny, harmless quirk. But what if it's not just noise? What if that sound is actually a distress signal? A clue that something much more dangerous is happening in the dark? And that's really the central question we're investigating here. Is that rumble you hear every night just a sound, or is it a symptom of a body that's in real trouble? As we're about to find out, the answer to that question could not be more critical. So our first piece of evidence is all about what you can hear. We have to listen really, really closely because the clues that separate a simple annoyance from a serious medical red flag, well, they're hidden not just in the sound, but maybe more importantly, in the silence. Okay, now look at the contrast here because the pattern is everything. Simple snoring, what you might call social snoring, it's got a rhythm to it. It's a steady, kind of continuous rumble. But the snoring that comes with sleep apnea, that's a whole different beast. It's chaotic, it's loud, it's all over the place, and then it's broken up by these sudden, pretty violent gasping or choking sounds. That isn't just noise. That is the sound of a literal struggle for air. But here's the part that should really get your attention. The most terrifying clue isn't actually the noise at all. It's the sudden, unnerving silence that falls right between those gasps. That pause, that's the moment when breathing has stopped, completely. That silence is the loudest warning sign there is. So let's go to the scene of the crime, the airway itself. To really get what's happening, we need to look at the physiology, the mechanics behind these sounds and these terrifying silences. What is physically going wrong night after night? And that brings us to our main suspect, obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. You can think of it as a mechanical failure. When you're asleep, the soft tissues in your throat, your tongue, your soft palate, they relax. But in someone with OSA, they relax so much that they just collapse. They physically block off the airway. No air can get in or out. And this image right here just perfectly illustrates what that blockage can look like. See the tonsil grades? By the time you get to grades 3 and 4, those tonsils are so enlarged, they're physically closing off the passage for air. It creates a high-risk environment for these obstructions to happen all night long. And that obstruction leads to two things, two really critical events. First, you have apnea. That's the complete stop in breathing. And the direct result of that is hypoxia. That's the technical term for when your body, and especially your brain, is being starved of the oxygen it desperately needs to survive. So what's the actual impact of this nightly oxygen heist? Let's dig into the hard evidence and see exactly what these blockages are doing to the body's most vital resource. You know, as sleep specialist Dr. Susan Higgins points out, those moments where you wake up gasping for air, that's your body's alarm system screaming for help. And that classic morning headache so many people with OSA get, well, that's one of the first pieces of physical evidence that your brain was fighting for oxygen all night. And let's look at some hard data. For example, we know that drinking alcohol can increase the number of these apnea events, these blockages, by almost 4 every single hour. The link is undeniable. The more you drink, the more your airway collapses. And for every one of those events, this is what happens. Your blood oxygen level takes a hit. It drops by an average of 2.72%. Now, I know that might not sound like a huge number, but you have to imagine that happening again and again and again, sometimes hundreds of times a night. The damage adds up, and it is immense. So let's connect the dots here. Every single time your oxygen drops, your brain panics. It hits the emergency button, flooding your body with stress hormones to jolt you awake and force a breath. That jolting, in turn, spikes your blood pressure and makes your heart work way, way harder. Night after night, year after year, that constant strain just hammers your entire cardiovascular system. So, how do we spot this culprit in day-to-day life? Let's build a profile, look at the key warning signs, and even a simple screening tool that can help us identify who's at a really high risk. The profile of this condition is pretty distinct. Beyond the stuff you can hear, the crazy loud snoring and the pauses in breathing, you have to look for the aftermath. Are you dealing with constant morning headaches, a perpetually dry mouth? And what about that crushing daytime sleepiness? That brain fog isn't just you being tired. It's a very real sign your brain didn't get what it needed all night. And this is absolutely critical to know. The profile isn't always the same. In women, the signs can be way more subtle. Instead of that classic, loud snoring, it might show up as insomnia or fatigue or mood swings. And because of that, it's so often misdiagnosed as depression or anxiety, while the real problem, the sleep disorder, is completely missed. So, okay, with all these different ways it can present itself, how can you get a clearer idea of your own risk or the risk of someone you know? Well, thankfully, there's a really common screening tool that can point you in the right direction. It's called the Stop Bang Questionnaire. It's just a straightforward list of 8 yes or no questions. It covers all the major signs and risk factors we've talked about, from snoring and tiredness to things like blood pressure and even neck size. And the rule of thumb is pretty simple. If you answer yes to 5 or more of these, it indicates a high probability that you're dealing with OSA. So, what's the end game? What happens if all these clues, all these warning signs are just ignored? What is the final verdict that the body delivers after fighting for air every single night, maybe for years on end? The verdict is severe. Let's be very clear. Untreated sleep apnea is not just about having a bad night's sleep. It's a direct path to some of the biggest health crises you can face. We're talking about uncontrolled high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, even type 2 diabetes. The connection is direct, it's proven, and it's incredibly dangerous. And if you need one final number to really drive this home, it's this one: 3. Studies have shown that people with severe untreated OSA have up to a 3 times higher risk of dying from any cause. It's a chilling statistic that really shows you the true cost of ignoring the silence. And so we end right back where we started, with a sound. But now we know, don't we? We know the real danger isn't in the noise itself, but in that awful telltale silence that comes right after it. So the question is, are you listening for it?